When Roman returned with their lunch, Daisy joined him in his room, and they shared a meal together. Roman gently grasped her hand and spoke, "Daisy." He embraced her tenderly and continued, "Without you, I can't go back home. I promise that whatever led you to make this decision won't happen again." Roman reached up to caress her face, adding, "If this ugliness resurfaces a second time, I'm willing to face a lifetime of solitude and the eternal pain of losing you." However, after contemplating for a moment, she placed her hands over Roman's mouth and urged, "Please don't make such promises. I don't want you to suffer and be alone forever." Roman held her hand and softly kissed her lips, whispering, "Trust me, Daisy. This time it was my mistake, and it caused you harm. You can choose any way to hold me accountable. Just don't leave me, for my soul couldn't bear it." Daisy's eyes widened as she responded, "Why would I hold you accountable? You've never wronged me. This is clearly my fault, and I must face the consequences." Roman hesitated to reveal the truth about what had occurred behind her back. He didn't want her to become aware of the depths of human cruelty. However, given the recent events, he couldn't help but think that John had been right. He had shielded Daisy too much, which had prevented her from recognizing people's ulterior motives. Daisy's innate kindness had made her blind to the hidden malice in others. It seemed necessary to enlighten her about the situation and teach her to discern friends from foes. In a world filled with potential dangers, having a sense of vigilance and the ability to recognize the truth was crucial. So, Roman decided to disclose everything he knew about Caroline and Ethan's actions towards her. Daisy listened in silence for an extended period before releasing a soft sigh. Roman anxiously awaited her response and finally asked, "Why aren't you saying anything?" Daisy nestled comfortably in his arms and, after a pause, spoke softly, "I don't feel anything for Caroline but pity." Roman couldn't hide his surprise. "After what she did to you, you don't harbor any resentment?" he inquired. Daisy replied, "She must have been heartbroken to discover our relationship. Regardless of whether I hate her or not, she's going through the pain of losing the love of her life. I just feel sorry for her." Roman was taken aback by Daisy's unexpected response. He needed a moment to process her words, realizing that Caroline's malicious actions had likely stemmed from her inner turmoil. They cuddled together in silence, and Daisy periodically checked Roman's forehead, asking if he was feeling any better. Then Daisy suddenly confessed, "You know, I still don't hate her, and it's okay if she hurts me." This statement stirred a hint of anger in Roman. "She tarnished your reputation. Why forgive her for something so significant?" he questioned. Daisy lowered her gaze, falling into silence. Observing her reaction, Roman decided not to scold her further. After a while, he released her hand and said, "I'm sweating all over. I need to change clothes." Daisy got out of bed, found a white shirt from her bag, and handed it to Roman. He recognized it as his own and teasingly asked, "Why do you keep men's clothes?" Daisy's face turned beet red as if she had a fever, and she mumbled, "It was yours, so I kept it. It had your scent, and it made me feel like you were with me." A warm smile crept across Roman's face. She grew increasingly embarrassed and wished she could disappear. Roman questioned her with mock seriousness, "Why did you steal my clothes?" Daisy lowered her head and softly admitted, "I kept it as a memory." "Come here," Roman beckoned, sitting up and pulling her close. He leaned in and kissed her gently. Roman had hesitated to kiss her for fear of passing on his illness, but when he saw that white shirt, he couldn't resist. He grinned and affectionately pinched her cheek. Daisy pulled away and urged, "Come on, hurry up and change your clothes." Roman playfully pretended to be weak and said, "I'm so weak, could you help me change?" Seeing her cautiously reaching out to unbutton his shirt, Roman burst into laughter at her timid expression. Daisy withdrew her hands, giving him an annoyed look. "I trust you so much, and yet you always find a way to tease me," she remarked. Roman changed his clothes and turned to face her, saying, "It's all in good fun when I tease you, but you take it quite seriously when you tease me." Daisy questioned, "When did I ever tease you?" A serious tone crept into Roman's voice as he replied, "Aren't you teasing me now by leaving without a word? Do you know how I felt when I got home and saw the note? It was like falling into a bottomless pit, and I broke out in a cold sweat. I checked your location and found out you had gone to the bus stop. A storm trapped you there, and that's the only reason I got there in time. Now that I think back on it, I shudder. If I hadn't found you, what would have happened? I would have been left alone, suffering from the loss of you for the rest of my life. Curious, she inquired. That incident has been all over the internet. Did your parents find out about it? Is that why you hurried back to the farmhouse? Roman explained. They didn't know yet, but I figured they would eventually, so I thought it was better for them to hear it from me than from someone else. Daisy was taken aback and raised her head to ask, Did you tell them? Roman nodded slowly. Cautiously, she asked, Are they very angry? Roman gently played with her hair as he replied, As soon as they heard it was you, they immediately agreed to let us be together. Daisy looked at him in disbelief, half propped up, and asked, Really? They agreed? Roman confirmed with a warm smile. They did. The following morning, when Roman woke up, he found that Daisy was not in the room. Confusion washed over him. They had been together the previous night, so where could she have gone so early in the morning? Roman turned to his nurse and inquired, Did Daisy head to work this morning? The nurse gestured toward a nearby gift shop and explained, Last night she came here to settle the bills and asked me if there was any work available nearby. The gift shop was quite busy this morning, so I called and checked. It's not too far, just a few minutes' walk. Roman was about to head outside when the nurse stopped him, concerned about his health. She advised, It's cold out there and you're still recovering. She's only working for 3 hours. She'll be back soon. However, Roman had already spotted Daisy through the window, making her way towards the hospital in the drizzling rain. The nurse noticed Daisy's return as well and commented, Look, she's back. Ignoring the nurse's protests, Roman quickly left the room and met Daisy outside. She held an umbrella in one hand and a plastic bag, presumably containing breakfast, in the other. At first, Daisy smiled, but when she saw Roman's expression, her smile gradually faded. She couldn't understand why he seemed so unhappy this morning. Without a word, Roman took the items from her hands and wrapped her in his coat. He stated, I'm feeling perfectly fine now. Let's return to the hotel. With that, he turned towards their room. As they walked, Daisy tried to get to the bottom of Roman's mood. She asked, What's bothering you? Roman, still upset, didn't immediately respond to her question. About halfway through their walk, he turned to the nurse and stated, I'll settle the rest of the bills tonight. The nurse waved it off, saying, Don't worry, there's no rush. Upon entering their room, Roman sat down on the edge of the bed with a sullen expression. He asked Daisy, Why didn't you tell me? Daisy admitted honestly, I was afraid you wouldn't let me go. Roman stared at her, still angry. You know I would have stopped you, but you still went ahead with it? Daisy mumbled. But we need the money right now. Roman pulled Daisy into a warm embrace and softly said, Baby, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have lied to you. If I had told you I had the money, you would have driven me away. Last night I wanted to talk but didn't want you to be angry. I was afraid you wouldn't come back with me in your anger. Darling, please forgive me this time. Roman held Daisy close, feeling like he had the most precious treasure in the world. He added, Daisy, promise me you won't leave me. Daisy turned to him and smiled. Didn't I already say it last night? Roman wanted reassurance and said simply, I want to hear it again. Daisy smiled and affirmed, I won't leave you. Roman kissed her cheek and eagerly began to enjoy the breakfast. He had never seen Roman so cheerful. She handed him his blood reports from the table and mentioned, I spoke to your doctor. He said you'll be discharged this afternoon. Any plans? Roman looked at her and suggested, Since we're on an impromptu vacation, why not stay a few more days and fully enjoy it? I've been away from work for a while and I want to spend as much time with you as possible. What do you think? Daisy thought it was a good idea and agreed. I think we can take some time off and enjoy it to the fullest. Roman was discharged from the hospital around noon. His fever had long subsided and he had recovered his full health. As they sat in a cab to go back to the hotel, he asked Daisy, "Do you want to go out for lunch? We didn't even have a proper breakfast. I am starving. I am thinking, let's go for some Japanese. You love it, don't you?" Japanese food did sound great, but then she remembered they had leftovers from the previous day back in their room, and it would all go to waste if they didn't finish them soon. She looked to her right where Roman was sitting and said, "If we do that, we will have to throw away all the leftovers we have. How about we finish those up? We can always go out some other time." Roman knew how difficult it had been for Daisy to manage all the expenses these couple of days. He just looked at her and nodded with a smile. "Of course we can. I almost forgot about that. We can't let your hard-earned money go to waste now, can we?" Once they entered the room, Daisy didn't let Roman lift a finger. She placed the container in the microwave to warm up the food. With a smile, she set the warm meal on the table and called for Roman. "Come on, lunch is ready. It feels so good to be out of the hospital and have some regular food. I was sick of their bland, sick people's food, to be honest." In Roman's mind, this scene felt somewhat like he was living a distant dream. Together with Daisy in a small hotel, eating leftovers for dinner and enjoying every moment. As long as Daisy was by his side, even a modest life like this seemed appealing to him. Her happiness was contagious, so he obediently took his seat and grabbed a spoon to start eating. They enjoyed their food in silence, and then the two of them rested for a while before they began to pack their stuff to go back home. Roman took out his phone from his pocket to make a call. Daisy shot him an angry glance, recalling all the innocent lies he had told her. With a secret smile, he gave her an apologetic look and went to the balcony to make a phone call. The matter couldn't be delayed any longer, and he needed to see to it immediately. He dialed someone and explained to the person on the other end what needed to be done. He wanted to set his plans for Caroline's family as well as their company in motion before they returned to the city. He wanted to burn the bridges before that cunning woman took advantage of it and came back to destroy them again. As Daisy walked out of the room, she cast a somewhat nostalgic look back inside. Roman suggested, "Since you like this place so much, how about staying one more night?" Daisy felt more at ease in such simple accommodations compared to the lavish hotels Roman was accustomed to. However, she also realized that Roman had already made significant adjustments for her, and she couldn't let him suffer further. She shook her head and replied, "I think I've had my fill of this place. Let's move on. Let's..." The hotel had a luxurious car parked at its entrance, leaving onlookers curious. They wondered why individuals with such high-end cars would choose to stay in a small hotel like theirs. Daisy headed downstairs, where the receptionist inquired, "Are you checking out now?" Daisy confirmed, "Yes, we are. Can we have the bill?" Glancing at the wall clock, she added, "Do we need to settle the bill, even though we won't be spending the night?" Daisy wasn't well versed in these matters and assumed they might be charged for half a day. Hearing her question, she sought confirmation. "Do we really not need to pay?" The receptionist replied, "No, ma'am, you only pay if you stay overnight." Roman guided Daisy outside, where a suited man emerged from the waiting limousine and respectfully greeted Roman, saying, "Hello, Mr. Spencer." He then took the luggage from Roman's hands. Roman inquired, "What about the items I requested?" The man promptly retrieved a sizable envelope from his pocket and handed it over to Roman. Turning to Daisy, Roman said, "Please go ahead and sit in the car. I'll join you shortly." Daisy nodded and entered the car. Roman proceeded to the hotel reception desk and presented the envelope to the staff member, saying, "I want to express my gratitude for your hospitality over the past few days. This is a token of my appreciation for your service. Please accept it." Without waiting for their response, he turned and entered the waiting car. The hotel staff exchanged uncertain glances. The man had been addressed as Sir, suggesting he held a significant position, but why had he chosen to stay at their establishment? Perplexed, the boss opened the envelope to find a stack of $100 bills. The receptionist hesitated and asked, "Can we really accept this money?" The boss blinked. "The car has already left, and if we don't take it, what are we to do with it? Let's get back to work." Roman and Daisy proceeded to a high-end clothing store for some shopping. Roman needed to replenish his regular attire, and Daisy had a few items in mind as well. They began with the men's section, as Roman required immediate clothing. Upon leaving that section, Daisy eagerly carried the shopping bags, a joyous expression on her face. Roman observed her happiness and allowed her to lead, trailing behind. Upon reaching the women's section, Daisy's excitement hadn't waned. Roman selected clothing items for her. After trying on a dozen or so pieces, she stood before the mirror, examining herself. Daisy's fashion sense was limited, but in new clothes, she felt attractive. As Daisy continued to choose her outfits, Roman contentedly sat on a couch, patiently waiting for her. Daisy, with her simple nature, was taken aback as the shopping guide piled several bags onto the counter. She questioned Roman, "Did you buy so many things?" Roman responded casually, "Why not if you like them?" In a hushed tone, Daisy suggested, "But we still have a lot of clothes at home. Maybe we shouldn't buy so much." Roman squinted at her and remarked, "I bought everything you said you liked, and now it's too much." The shopping guide, who stood nearby to see them off, looked at Daisy with envy, grateful for such an exceptional man who showered her with affection. Exiting the department store, it was time for dinner. Roman took Daisy to a renowned sushi restaurant known for its authentic Japanese cuisine and upscale ambiance. He had arranged a reservation earlier in the day, wanting to treat his girl to a delightful evening. Observing Daisy savoring various dishes and enjoying the music warmed Roman's heart. Daisy, feeling that such fantastic food must come with a hefty price tag, asked Roman, "Is this place very expensive?" Roman casually replied, "It's not an issue if you like it." Daisy grinned, saying, "Well, it's amazing, and I don't mind you treating me to dinner for a change. I worked hard for you while you lied all this time." She leaned in to express her gratitude with a kiss, but Roman, bothered by the lingering scent of fish, dodged playfully, eliciting laughter from Daisy that filled the room and his heart. In the evening, they stayed at the luxurious Hilton Hotel. Roman felt remorseful for Daisy's recent ordeal and did his utmost to make it up to her. Upon entering the room, he personally set up a romantic bubble bath, adorning it with scented candles and arranging a bouquet of roses that had been delivered. He also ordered a plate of strawberries from room service and played soothing music for her. Daisy luxuriated in the bathtub, feeling immensely comfortable and grateful to Roman for his thoughtful gestures. After making these preparations for her, Roman went to the hallway outside to make a phone call. Now that he had successfully convinced his beloved girl to return home, there were other matters he needed to address. Roman was not inherently vengeful, but Caroline had crossed the line by involving Daisy. She had relied on her family's influence and connections, and Roman believed that by stripping away that support, she would be forced to face the consequences of her actions and live with regret. Not many would dare to join forces with him to challenge the power of Caroline's family's company. After all, they were very powerful, but Roman would start paying close attention to Williams's corporation's activities soon. After a couple of financial battles, the company's shares would plummet, and Roman would find a suitable buyer. He might have to join hands with other companies in buying the shares, since he had diluted so much funds from his in buying the ancestral house. He had been a bit busy trying to make Daisy feel better, but now he was back, waiting for the right moment to strike. When Roman and Daisy awoke the next morning, the sky had cleared. Roman mentioned, "I have some work to attend to today. Would you like to join, or would you prefer to stay in the room and watch TV?" Daisy, content with yesterday's shopping and outings, yearned to snuggle in her blanket and binge-watch old movies. She turned to him and proposed, "How about we order room service and watch The Notebook? Does that sound good? While you're gone, I might take a long nap and make the most of this holiday." Roman responded with absolute fondness. "I never expected you to be such a homebody, but whatever you wish, I would do anything for you." Daisy couldn't help but blush at his words. As Tony sat within the confines of Miller's Corporation, a phone call jolted him from his thoughts. The voice on the other end delivered the startling news that the Williams Group had suffered catastrophic financial losses. They have lost a lot of their shares, and it has been bought by none other than the Millers Corporation. The Williams Group was destroyed. A growing suspicion gnawed at Tony's mind. His thoughts raced to the scandal organized by Caroline. His intuition led him to one conclusion. It was Adam who had bought those shares. Tony had little doubt that no one but Adam could execute such a ruthless act. Tony had to talk to Adam about it. He ended the call, rose from his seat, and proceeded to Adam's office, determined to seek answers and clarity on the situation at hand. Adam was in the midst of explaining something to his secretary when he noticed Tony entering his office. With a subtle wave, he gestured for the secretary to excuse herself. Once the door was closed, Tony asked without any delay, "Did you have any involvement in what happened to Williams Corporation?" Adam leaned back in his chair, swiveling slightly as he inquired, "Williams Corporation? The one headed by Caroline's father?" Tony nodded in confirmation. Adam met Tony's gaze and responded, "I hold no grudges against that family or their business. Why would I concern myself with them?" Tony probed further, suggesting a connection to Roman or Caroline's actions. Could it be related to Roman or perhaps to avenge what Caroline did to Daisy? Adam chuckled, his tone dismissive. "I don't make rash decisions like that. Daisy is no one to me, and Roman has been my rival for years. Why would I assist them? Do you take me for a madman?" Tony chose to remain silent. Adam mostly kept to himself, which cast an aura of aloofness and an air of authority about him. He maintained a calculated distance from those around him and guarded his innermost emotions from others. Tony couldn't help but notice how similar this trait was to Roman. Like Adam, Roman had mastered the art of concealing his vulnerability behind a facade of indifference and detachment. In the midst of Tony's silence, Adam rose from his seat and made his way to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. With a smile, he extended one to Tony, his words as smooth as aged bourbon. "Tony, you are too skeptical to be a businessman. A career in politics would better suit you." Tony took a sip and retorted, "Let's not deflect from the question, Adam. Tell me, why did you buy the shares from Williams?" Adam chuckled. "I didn't do any of that for Roman or for Daisy. Don't you trust me to tell you the truth if I did?" "You have always considered Roman as a rival. Then why would you help him? Is there more to this than you care to show?" Tony asked. Adam retorted, "Why are you coming up with these outlandish theories? I'm far too exhausted for this." Tony pressed on. "Then why don't you want to tell me?" Adam rolled his eyes in frustration and kept quiet. Tony took another sip of his drink and shot the next question. "Did you do all of this because you are infatuated with Daisy?" Adam's anger flared. "That girl is fragile and simple. She is far from my league." With a shift in his tone, Tony asked a different question this time. "But Roman and Daisy have been absent for 3 days now. Do you have any idea where they might be?" Adam was confused at this. "What do you mean, Tony?" Now Tony had an idea how he might get Adam to speak his true thoughts about Roman. Adam didn't like Roman, right? Tony thought. So Adam must be glad if he suggested a plan to destroy Roman. Clearing his throat, Tony offered, "Since Roman is away and we had no idea when or if he is returning, the Spencer family is currently lacking a central figure. Don't you think this is the perfect moment to make strategic moves that could rattle their stock prices? And then the Spencers would suffer just like Williams." Tony gave a sinister smile to make his act look more genuine. Adam replied with a thought, "Maybe Roman's not there, but John most certainly is. He is an equal mastermind. Do you think John would fall for our scheme, whatever we might come up with? Even in Roman's absence, he'll ensure all of our plans hit a dead end. Besides, isn't John your friend? Is this how you repay friendship, Tony? By scheming and usurping their businesses? It doesn't align with nobility, does it?" Tony responded with an unflinching smile. The Spencers are not his true family. At worst, he might lose his job, but he can always return to his own family's company and assume control. Adam couldn't help but chuckle. Tony, I am perfectly aware why you suggested destroying the Spencers. You wanted to know my true feelings for Roman, but believe me, I have no hidden secrets to unearth. So forget whatever theories you have. Tony casually placed his glass on the table. Very well then. I'll get back to my work. As Tony was about to leave, his gaze fell on the documents laid on Adam's desk. They were all bank statements for transactions leading to the Williams. He stood in his tracks and questioned Adam. Just explain to me these statements. It's not like buying shares from Williams was highly profitable for you, so there has to be some ulterior motive. If it wasn't to help Roman, if it wasn't because you like Daisy, why was it? Have you had some personal grudge against Caroline or her family? Adam listened patiently and then exhaled. Fine, I'll tell you. No one is more important to Roman than Daisy. Roman is away now and had no idea that Williams had a weak moment in business a couple of days ago where their shares fell drastically. But guess who was paying close attention to each and every activity of that company? Adam took a dramatic pause and Tony added, You were. Exactly. Adam gave a smile and continued. So I went ahead and destroyed that company. Now if I avenged Roman's beloved without him even asking for help once, he will forever be indebted to me. And I like the idea of Roman Spencer being grateful to me, unable to find a way to repay me. After a pause, Adam asked, Are you convinced now? Tony replied, Not fully, but this explanation will have to do for now. Then he turned and walked out with brisk steps. Tony hadn't fully believed Adam. He knew Adam had spoken the truth, at least in parts, but he still had a nagging suspicion at the back of his head. Adam sat in his chair, staring at the bank statements as his brain buzzed with the excitement of Roman returning and what came next for them. Back to the cozy time Roman was having with Daisy, he turned to Daisy and watched her focus on some movie that he had no idea about. It was some sappy rom-com that she loved to watch. It made her laugh, cry, and get excited at the same time. He felt so lucky that he had a second chance to make such memories with her. He watched her for some time and then asked, Aren't you tired yet? You have been staring at the screen for hours now. Maybe we should take a break. I am not at all tired. Daisy dragged herself to sit straight. I'm a bit stiff, though. Maybe we could have a snack. This popcorn isn't filling enough. Seeing that the girl insisted on having some food, Roman had no choice but to agree. They made some sandwiches and sat on the kitchen counter talking about anything and everything. They watched the amazing view of the sunset through their French windows and enjoyed each other's company. Roman opened a bottle of water for Daisy to drink and asked, Is your back still stiff? The girl leaned her neck back and gulped several sips before shaking her head and saying, I feel much better now. It was good to move away from the screen for a while. I just get too carried away with the movies. Everything is so beautiful from up here. I feel like freezing myself in this moment forever. I'm going to miss this so much back home. Roman lowered his head close to her face and said in a gentle voice, Watching the sunrise tomorrow morning will be even more beautiful. Roman wrapped the girl in his overcoat and hugged her quietly as they watched the sun set inch by inch between the green peaks, leaving only the gorgeous glow of the sky. Roman didn't let go of Daisy, just wrapped her up and walked slowly towards the bedroom behind, as a good night's sleep enveloped them. Roman's clear voice stirred Daisy from her slumber, and she sat on the bed yawning and looking adorable. He kissed her and urged her to join him in witnessing the sunrise. Come on, you sleeping beauty. Let's get fresh. She sleepily rubbed her eyes, somewhat bewildered when Roman knelt down to put socks on her feet. Your feet are so cold, why? He inquired. Sometimes they are, not a big deal, she yawned. He smiled, and Daisy watched as he headed to the bathroom. She hurriedly got off the bed, following him inside and wrapping her arms around him in a loving embrace. Roman patted her on the back, urging her to hurry, or we won't find the perfect spot, he said. Roman had planned a memorable outing, taking Daisy to the beach to witness the breathtaking sunrise. He used to come here with his family all the time. Realizing Roman was in a hurry, Daisy quickly prepared herself, and they left the hotel together. The sky was exceptionally dark. Even though it was close to dawn, it was devoid of both moonlight and stars. Roman relied on his phone's navigation, and Daisy clung to him, treading cautiously. The cold wind had grown sharper, making Daisy's ears tingle, and she shivered. Roman held her hand firmly and asked softly, "Are you cold?" "I'm okay, Roman," Daisy assured him, but he still pulled up her scarf to shield her ears. Eventually, the wind blew the scarf away, prompting Roman to stop and rewrap it, using both hands to ensure it stayed in place. This took a few extra minutes. When they finally arrived at their destination, the beach was bustling with people and vendors. Roman found a secluded spot among the groups of people eagerly awaiting the sunrise. He was so excited for Daisy to enjoy it. He held her close to keep her warm in the chilly pre-dawn breeze. Worried about Daisy getting too cold, Roman suggested, "You should wait in that shop over there and I'll call you when it's time. I don't want you to catch a cold." Before Daisy could respond, a voice from the crowd exclaimed, "Here it comes!" Daisy craned her neck to look, but the sun hadn't yet made its appearance. Anxiously, she inquired, "Where is it? Why can't I see it?" Roman pointed in the right direction and said, "Look there. Do you see it?" Following his gaze, Daisy spotted it. A brilliant red sun gradually ascending above the vast sea, casting its radiant light and warmth, dispelling the lingering darkness. The sun's glow pierced through the dark sky, illuminating the world. Daisy was deeply moved, realizing the profound beauty and emotion the world held. Her mother's wisdom about cherishing life's small moments came to her, and happy tears filled her eyes. In the midst of the crowd's cheers, Roman abruptly whisked her away to a secluded haven, away from the cacophony, to relish this moment, till finally be with her away from the chaos of the world. He held her and kissed her, and she kissed him back. Upon their return to the beach later, the sun had ascended high in the sky, bathing the sands in a golden hue. Daisy's spirits had undergone a marked transformation. Shedding her coat, she ran to a nearby food stall selling donuts. She suddenly realized she was extremely hungry. Roman anticipated her desire. He took her coat and intoned, "Let us have some donuts since my girl is so hungry, and then we shall retreat to our abode, just you and I." Daisy laughed at the dramatic proclamation. They indulged in the sugary confections before wending their way back to their room. Both of them felt too lazy to leave the bed. Daisy refused to let go of the warm cocoon of Roman's embrace. He murmured tenderly, "You woke up early today. Perhaps you would want to get some sleep now." Daisy didn't say anything. She just kept smiling at him, a content and yet inviting smile. "Why are you smiling like that?" Roman asked, and she just smiled some more in reply. Roman gave her a smirk and bent down to steal that smile with his lips. Meanwhile, with Roman on a brief sabbatical, Sarah found herself dealing with John, who had assumed her boss's duties during his absence. She went to John's office, and Mary hurried to assist her. Rising from her seat, Mary inquired if there was anything Sarah required. Though Sarah appreciated the earnestness, she responded with a smile, "You need not be so apprehensive in my presence. Simply address me by my name." Nina wasn't overly courteous, so I am unaccustomed to such attention from John's secretary. Mary smiled politely and retained her courteous demeanor. "I just don't want you to suffer any inconvenience because of my negligence. I will inform Mr. John of your arrival." She began to open the door but was stopped by Sarah, who said, "It's all right, Mary. You may proceed with your tasks. I can manage from here. Thank you for your assistance." Mary was perceptive and recognized that the atmosphere in the company had been unusual lately, with the public relations department having frequent meetings and working overtime. She understood that her boss was likely exhausted. Given that Sarah had to visit their office multiple times a day and all the high-level executives were acting mysteriously, Mary suspected there were things they didn't want her to know. So, she returned to her desk, allowing Sarah to handle the situation herself. Sarah approached John and sat down quietly, observing him without interrupting his thoughts. John's gaze turned to her, but he appeared somewhat dazed, as if he didn't recognize her. After a few seconds, he seemed to snap out of it and asked, "What are you doing here? If you needed something, you could have told Mary." Sarah placed the documents she was holding on the table and looked at him with concern, asking, "Why do you suddenly seem so down? Did something happen? Or is this going to be your new default mood?" John appeared puzzled and replied, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never felt more relaxed in my life. With Roman not around to irritate me, I'm enjoying every moment." He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and let out a sigh. Sarah grew curious and inquired, "John, please tell me what's wrong. It's not like you to be lost in thought all day and isolate yourself in your office like this." John let out another sigh, but he still didn't speak, leaving Sarah waiting for an explanation. Sarah offered a reassuring smile and said, "Sharing your problems can help lighten the burden. I'm here to listen if you want to talk about what's been bothering you." John finally smiled and approached her earnestly, saying, "I need to ask you for something." He hesitated midway through his request and added, "Never mind, we can discuss it later." Sarah's curiosity grew at his hesitation. What could John possibly need her help with? She lacked significant connections, financial resources, or extraordinary business acumen. How could she assist him in any meaningful way? They may share a good rapport with one another, but she wouldn't call him a close friend. He was always nice and approachable to her, other than that they didn't share any details about their personal life. That made her think what could have made John so desperate that he had to come to her for help. The more John avoided the topic, the more Sarah wanted to know the details. "John, if you think there's a way I can help, I'm willing to try," she insisted. John found her eagerness amusing and contemplated it briefly before shaking his head, saying, "Let's forget it for now. We'll discuss it later. Right now, let's focus on our boss. Have we managed to clean up everything in the media and online?" Sarah updated him on what was going on behind the scenes. "Everything is under control. The PR department has put in a lot of effort this time. We've taken care of everything that needed to be deleted. I just checked, and all mentions of Daisy have been wiped clean." John took note of the situation and then suggested, "Let's give the PR department a bonus this month." Sarah then remembered about a specific someone who had also been of help to them and reminded John, "And we should include Tony on that list as well. Without him, none of this would have gone so smoothly." John smiled at her considerate remark and informed her, "Tony will get his reward when Roman returns. Roman will personally thank him. By the way, when is your boss planning to return? He seems quite content being with Daisy, not thinking about returning to the daily grind." Sarah had almost forgotten until now to tell everyone about Roman's phone call. "I received a call from him this morning and he said he'll be back with us tomorrow. I have a backlog of documents awaiting his approval. If he doesn't return soon, I might go crazy. I need to ask you to do something before you lose your mind," John remarked. However, Sarah hesitated due to his secretive nature. She didn't want to get into something before knowing the entire thing, so she made herself clear beforehand. "I want to promise to help you, but your secrecy makes me hesitant." John reassured her again, not wanting her to back out. "It's for a good cause." Sarah was still unsure, and that made her press further. "Then why not tell me about it now?" John evaded her inquiry. "I'll let you know when the time comes." Seeing that John wasn't going to reveal more, Sarah stopped prodding and decided to get back to her work. She pointed to the stack of documents and said, "I'm in a hurry. Sign these papers now. We need to get everything sorted before the boss arrives. He will be here by tomorrow and resume work." The next day, the Spencer office was fully alive and bustling, waiting for the return of their boss. The employees who had slacked over the past week were sitting on their laptops, relentlessly updating the work and printing out documents in case Roman called them in for an update. Heels clicked on the floors as secretaries ran room to room with stacks of papers and files being passed around awaiting signatures. At around 10, a Rolls-Royce pulled over and Roman Spencer walked inside. The office resumed its usual disciplined mannerisms. Upon arriving at the office, Roman urgently tasked Sarah with scheduling a meeting with Adam and Tony without delay. He was determined to address any potential threats to Daisy swiftly, having witnessed the danger she could face when he let his guard down. He had relaxed one evening, and look what had happened. Sarah informed Roman, "Boss, they're available tonight. Shall I arrange a venue?" After a brief contemplation, Roman decided, yes, let's do it today. Book a meeting at the clubhouse. Understood, boss, Sarah acknowledged before turning to leave. However, Roman detained her with another request. Could you also accompany Daisy after work? I don't feel comfortable leaving her alone at home. Of course, sir, Sarah agreed. She cared for Daisy and would do anything within her means to ensure her safety. As Sarah exited his office, she couldn't help but notice the uncharacteristic anxiety etching Roman's typically composed face. She wanted to assist him but didn't know how to, so she walked to her desk. Subsequently, Roman phoned Daisy to inform her that he wouldn't be available for dinner due to an appointment with some acquaintances. Sure, take your time, Daisy replied. Just be mindful of the alcohol and smoking, she cautioned him. Roman, who was feeling weary from a day of tiring business matters, was amused at her concern. He replied with a chuckle. Why? Are you concerned I'll get drunk and engage in flirtations with other ladies? Daisy countered. It's not good for your well-being, and besides, no woman will be drawn to your brooding demeanor. You're not as charming as you think. Roman laughed heartily. I thought you were possessive of me. I was wrong. Puzzled, Daisy inquired, What are you talking about? Roman simply added, I'll join you once the meeting concludes. Oh, and I've arranged a meal for you. It'll be delivered later. Sarah will keep you company for dinner. Take care of yourself while you're alone at home. Daisy said okay, and even after their conversation concluded, they both lingered on the call silently, savoring the togetherness. Roman, attuned to the soft rise and fall of Daisy's breathing, eventually broke the silence, murmuring, You hang up first. Daisy hummed in agreement and ended the call. Cradling his phone, Roman smiled to himself. It's only been one afternoon apart, and I already miss her. Well done, Roman Spencer. At dusk, Roman arrived at the clubhouse and saw Adam and Tony already there. Seeing him, Adam stood up and shook his hands. Roman, you look good. Adam, I am glad you could come, Roman replied. Tony also greeted Roman. Hello there, Roman. I am grateful for you, Tony. Without you, I would not have been able to find Daisy, Roman said, his gratitude palpable in his voice. Tony was silent for a moment before asking, Is Daisy okay? Thank you for your concern. She is fine. Roman's tone had already eased, but when Tony mentioned Daisy's well-being, he became displeased again. Now Adam took over the conversation. So what's the meeting about? Did you want to discuss the ecological park bid? Roman smiled to himself at Adam's pretense. There now, Adam, no need to act all innocent. We all know what this meeting is for. You helped bring down Caroline's family. Do you want anything in return? Tony laughed and said to Adam, Look, you think you've hidden it perfectly, but everyone knows it's you. Adam smiled helplessly, shook his head and turned to Roman. I did what I did because Daisy is a sweet person and Caroline was cruel to her. I just wanted to teach her a lesson. Don't worry about trying to compensate me. I already have more than enough. What I did was a choice and I wasn't taking orders from you, so you don't have to worry. Roman looked at Adam, who was sitting there with an unreadable expression on his face, and said, You know how self-respecting Daisy is. Doesn't like taking favors from anyone. If she gets to know you lost so much money buying the shares, she will feel uneasy. Roman, you are being too polite now, Adam said with a smile. If you don't tell her, she will never know. A thoughtful look passed Roman's face and he replied, When two people are together, trust is the most important thing. If I don't tell her about this and she finds out in the future, she will be hurt. I don't want any secrets between us. So you better put forward a condition. Man, you are too serious. Adam showed a helpless expression. I said, I don't want anything. I did what I could to help Daisy out. I didn't have any other motive behind it. Roman chuckled lightly and looked at him. You want me to owe you a favor, right? Is that why you are being so generous? Adam laughed. Ouch, Roman, stop hurting my feelings. I want to be nice for once and you are questioning my intent. Roman sat there looking at Adam being unnecessarily smug about everything. He and Adam were not friends. What point was he trying to prove by showing so much care for Daisy? Roman couldn't place a finger at it now, but he didn't believe Adam had spent a fortune to bring down Caroline because he was concerned for Daisy. That was too simplistic a move, so unlike Adam Miller, but he didn't press too much. He would take his time to figure out what was going on in Adam's mind. They shared a few drinks, and the meeting was over. When Roman returned home, Sarah was watching TV with Daisy. When she saw her boss come back, she got up to leave. Daisy hugged her and walked her to the door. When she came back, Roman was sitting on the couch. A satisfied smile spread over his face on seeing Daisy safe and sound. Daisy, on the other hand, was extremely restless, pacing around the hall. "What happened?" Roman asked, his voice laced with concern. Daisy's restlessness was about Ethan's phone call. She had wanted to give Roman some time to relax, but her growing anxiety took the better of her, and she blurted out, "Did you do something bad to Ethan?" Roman didn't expect to return home to that accusation. A hint of annoyance flickered his face as soon as Daisy said this. "And what brought you to that conclusion?" he asked flatly. "I called him this afternoon, and I felt that something was wrong with him, as if he was in some trouble. He didn't sound like himself at all. It seemed he was surrounded by people who terrified him." Then she pleaded, "If you did something, then please, I beg you to stop it. He was as much a victim of Caroline as I was. He has already been punished too much for the crimes he didn't even commit." When Roman heard that Daisy had called Ethan, a cold look flashed in his eyes. "Why did you call him?" "Because he wanted to talk to me earlier, but I wasn't able to take his call. So when I came back, I just called to know what he had wanted." After a pause, she went on, "He already said goodbye and left. Why would he call me so many times? I was just afraid something bad might have happened to him." "So you called him?" Roman questioned. Daisy could tell he wasn't understanding the situation. Roman continued, "Who the hell is he to you? Why does it matter to you if he is in some trouble or not? He is my friend, Roman, and he has helped me a lot of times," Daisy said in a low voice. Roman scoffed. "Maybe he had, but can't you understand we can't trust him anymore? Maybe he's not all that bad, but he was beguiled by Caroline into hurting you once. Wasn't he? What if he listens to someone else and tries to come after you again?" "I know things have happened," Daisy said, and walked slowly to Roman, sitting down next to him. She continued in a calm voice. "He told me everything, but it was all Caroline's fault. She lied to Ethan and manipulated him to do those things." She tentatively touched his hand and said, "I know you are angry, and you think Ethan is a bad person. He did hurt me, but it's not what you think. He is very talented and ambitious. His family is poor, so he wants to become a successful person in the future, and all he has been doing is to reach his goal. Caroline promised to recommend him to study abroad and get a full scholarship if he helped her," he agreed in a moment of confusion. Roman snorted, "Don't you think you know him a bit too well? What are you even talking about? I said he's my friend." Daisy was speechless. She didn't expect Roman to say such a thing. She told him everything, and yet he doubted her. She was furious at first, but then that anger melted into helplessness, and her eyes filled with tears. Seeing her in tears, Roman's insecurity took a back seat, and his reason returned. He mentally snubbed himself for hurting her, but he was going through a new threat of losing Daisy every day, as he has forgotten to separate right from wrong. He sighed and moved closer to her. He pulled her into his arms, hugging her tightly. Daisy was flustered at first, but then Roman lifted her chin and kissed her lightly. He kissed away her tears, coaxing her softly, "Hey, don't cry. Why are we arguing over a stranger? It's all my fault. I shouldn't have spoken so harshly. Don't cry now, baby." She choked into his chest. "I have said this before, and I will say this again. He's just my friend." She looked up at him and said, "Roman, I know you can never forgive him for what he did, but you need to understand his unfortunate circumstances forced him to take up Caroline's offer. His mother is very unwell, and only his father supports the entire family. All he wants is to provide some financial security to his family, and taking this college offer was the only way for him to do that. He chose his family over me, and no matter what you say, I can't see anything wrong with that." Roman patiently listened to Daisy's perspective this time before jumping to impulsive conclusions. At last, he said, "I am fine with you forgiving him, but don't expect me to do the same. I can't, Daisy, not even if I want to." She mumbled, "It's okay in return." He continued holding her and said, "Darling, there is something I want you to know. I have been in contact with Tony regarding Ethan's whereabouts, and I came to know that he has joined Dave's gang and is currently undergoing training by his gang members at their clubhouse. I'm not sure of the entire truth of the situation, though." Daisy sat up in surprise. Did they force him to join their gang? "Don't you think we should help him get out of that mess?" Roman said, "We don't know why he joined that gang or if it was forced. But Daisy, I wouldn't even know Ethan but for you. So I don't think I can interfere in his life's matters. He has chosen a path for himself, whatever the circumstances, and he will be the one to see it through. I told you everything I know just so that you could let go of this once and for all." Daisy nodded. "I will. Thank you for telling me about him. At least now I know that he is fine." Roman hugged her, but he wasn't sure how safe Ethan was now that he had taken a different path in his life. Daisy, on the other hand, was still worried about Ethan's safety, but she knew sometimes we have to let go of people, and sometimes we have to let them walk the path they have chosen for themselves, even if those aren't the best paths. In the dimly lit tavern, his hands bound behind his back, a battered Ethan endured a relentless beating from his captor. He was being thrashed left and right, and a groan escaped his mouth every few minutes. Spitting out a mouthful of blood onto the gritty floor, he staggered to his feet and fixed his gaze on a man bearing a dragon tattoo on his arm. "You have the power to kill me. Why hesitate? End me once and for all. What stops you?" Ethan inquired with defiance. The tattooed man gave a menacing smile and responded in an eerily composed tone. "I am not foolish enough to kill you when I recognize your value. You, my friend, are the most capable among us. Even the older members are impressed by your tactful skills and fighting techniques." Ethan slumped back into the seat and demanded in a hoarse voice that was clearly in need of water, "Tell your leader to come here and meet me face to face if he wants me to cooperate with his minions." The man remained unaffected by Ethan's provoking. He almost looked bored at his lame tactic to create a mess. "Our boss won't grace you with his presence. He thinks you're still a bit hot-headed. He's afraid you might lose control and make a real mess, and our boss might have to put an end to you. We don't want to let your talent go to waste, you see." Ethan did not let go of his plan to get on his captor's nerves. He again threw some heated words at him. "I think your leader is a coward. What kind of gang are you guys running if he won't even come to see me? It's pathetic if you ask me." The tattooed man remained unruffled, shaking his head with a disapproving sigh. "Don't let your anger get the better of you. It won't do you any good. The leader will come to see you in his own time and on his own terms. Let me give you some information about your future. Our leader and Mr. Spencer will ensure your safety, and nothing will happen to you as of now. If you intend to remain in their good books, you should consider cooperating with us." The man approached him with a menacing smile and continued, "Think about your family. They raised you, provided for your education, and you've given them nothing in return. Dying in vain would be such a waste of all their efforts, wouldn't it?" Ethan clenched his fists and sat there in stunned silence. Those words hit his weak nerve, and he couldn't resist thinking about his family. Other guys around him grew impatient and urged the tattooed man, Nick, stop wasting time on him. Drag him out in the boxing ring again and see if he can still hold on to his tough boy act. Nick waved his hand to hush the men and continued with Ethan. "Your mother doesn't look like she will be getting well anytime soon. I know her condition is getting worse day by day. What if one day she falls ill and you aren't even there for her?" Ethan stared at him with a cold glare and said, "If you lay a hand on my mother, I'll make sure none of you live to see another day on this earth. That's the spirit, my boy. You're perfect to join this lifestyle." Nick chuckled. "Consider it a blessing that you've earned our boss's favor. Many people beg for his attention, but he noticed you at once. Do you think that's luck? Following our leader has its benefits. Your father won't need to toil as hard to make ends meet, and your mother can afford the best medical care without any trouble. Don't assume everything we do is nefarious. We may tread a bit sideways, but we don't harm innocent folks. There are things you won't be forced to do, and above all, our leader is righteous and caring. You'll see for yourself once you start taking his orders." Ethan sighed. Nick had finally managed to catch the right nerve. He could do anything to support his family, and he replied to Nick, "Give me some time to think. I'll give you my answer tomorrow morning, all right?" Nick's face lit up with a hint of joy. He patted Ethan on the back and said, "We have a deal then." He then turned to his guys and announced, "Listen up, everyone. Take good care of him tonight. Who knows, we could have a new member with us tomorrow." "As you say, Nick." Several of the guys chimed in unison. It was almost midnight, and the autumn wind rustled, sending fallen leaves swirling in its wake. John slipped his hands deep into the pockets of his coat, strolling through the lanes leading to Nina's house. How had he ended up here? Did he truly not know? He let out a self-deceptive sigh, but deep down, he knew the answer. It was because he missed her and her memories had lured him here. Watching Roman build something meaningful with Daisy caused a pang of envy in John's heart. No matter how challenging life got, they faced it together, finding both pain and happiness in their union. But what about John? He shamelessly pursued Nina time and again, yet she did not return his affection. With any other woman, his pride would have sent him packing long ago, but this time was different. He had genuine feelings for this woman, and because of that, he willingly subjected himself to her whims. When it came to love, it seemed that one could cast aside all notions of self-esteem. John ascended the steps of her apartment building. The further he ventured, the darker it became. Yet in his heart, John felt like he was walking up to his destination. Filled with anticipation and hope, he came to a halt outside Nina's door. He rang the bell and was immediately met by Nina's unimpressed face. Before she could object to his presence, he said, "Let's step inside and talk." Nina looked at him suspiciously. "Do you have something important to discuss with me?" John looked into Nina's eyes and said, "I do, or else I wouldn't have bothered you." Nina remained somewhat hesitant. She had made up her mind to sever all ties with John. She had moved houses and quit her job, but here she was again entangled with him for no apparent reason. This wasn't what she wanted. She felt like she was one step away from the abyss where she might shatter into pieces. No, she couldn't take that step, absolutely not. Previously, her heart had been too soft, leading John to believe that there still might be a chance of pursuing her. She couldn't continue like this. Nina took a deep breath and spoke coldly. "Let's talk right here and please keep it brief. I have to turn in for the night." Nina's demeanor told John that his chances for the evening were slim. He sighed and said, "Daisy has returned to the city." Nina smirked mockingly. "John, I'm not Daisy's friend. Why do you feel the need to report everything to me? I have my own life now, and I don't have time to fret over other people's affairs. They were a part of my past. I don't want to know about them anymore." Hearing her response left him speechless for a moment, but then he continued, "Nina, if Daisy and Roman can find their way back to each other after so much difficulty, then why can't we?" Nina burst into laughter, her amusement ringing out, "John, you crack me up. They're in love with each other, unlike us who use each other for some thrill and amusement." He admitted, "I suppose we do. You're right. It's not like we love each other. Why couldn't he just bring himself to say he too was in love with her? Maybe he was too afraid of heartbreak." Without waiting for Nina's response, he turned and went down the stairs. Descending into the darkness felt lonesome and frustrating. John couldn't recall the last time he had felt truly happy. He went downstairs and called Tony. "Let's go for a drink." Half an hour later, Tony greeted him with a smile. "John, what's with that sadness on your face? You seem a bit down." John brushed off his remark and signaled the bartender to bring over their drinks. He took a sip before sighing again. "Tony, we're both adults now. Don't you think it's about time we settle down and lead stable lives?" Tony leaned back and squinted at John. "What's gotten into you again? Do you feel pressured after seeing all that lovey-dovey stuff between Roman and Daisy?" John smiled and replied earnestly, "I'm serious. Am I too shallow that women don't feel secure around me? When I want to settle down, it seems like no woman is willing to marry me." "No," Tony reassured him. "Regardless of how much of a handful you are, I am pretty sure any woman would be lucky to have you in her life." "Then why doesn't she want to?" John mused, swirling the drink in his glass. "Who's this she you're talking about?" Tony suddenly grew cautious. "Who is she, John? Tell me about it, you sneaky bastard." John shook his head and sighed lazily. "You can't help me with this one. Forget it." Tony set his glass on the bar counter and said, "What's going on? You're being all mysterious. You, Adam, both of you are like this." John inquired, "What's happening with Adam?" Tony leaned in close to John's ear and spoke in a hushed tone. "I've got a secret to spill. Adam has a crush on Roman." "What?" John nearly choked on his whiskey, his eyes widening in shock. "That can't be right, can it? Adam's not straight?" Tony rubbed his chin. "I had the same doubt, but there's always been something odd between him and Roman. After some thought, this was the only explanation I could come up with." John remained skeptical, shaking his head. "You've got quite the imagination. If Roman finds out about your theory, he will punch you in your face. He treats Adam as nothing but an inconvenience." Tony let out a derisive snort, fully in alignment with John's sentiments. He fell into a momentary silence. Then he broke into a wry chuckle. "Roman is quite the magnet, isn't he? Caroline wants him, Daisy wants him, and now it seems Adam as well. Appears no one can resist his charm." John sensed the potential repercussions if news like this reached the tabloids. He urged Tony, "Let's steer clear of this topic. If anyone hears our banter about Adam's infatuation with Roman, it could spell a major scandal." "Fair enough, I'll zip it," Tony concurred, raising his hands in pretended surrender. Tony still couldn't comprehend John's changed persona. He appeared deeply sad for some reason. So he prodded, "Your engagement's off and your fiancé is gone. Why linger in isolation? Go out, meet someone, have a good time." John remained silent. Instead, he took a sip of his drink and gazed at the singer on the stage. As the music filled the air, memories of Nina flooded his thoughts, the way she smiled, her mischievous eyes, and her carefree laughter, all vivid in his mind. Love had often felt like a game to John, but Nina had been much more than a mere partner. She had been his confidant and his biggest supporter. Whenever he felt despondent or alone, she had been there for him. Now, she felt like a distant memory he struggled to recollect, but it somehow remained out of reach. In a sudden burst of emotion, John bolted out of the door, prompting Tony to chase after him. Yet all Tony witnessed was John's car speeding away. Standing at the doorway, baffled, he muttered to himself, "What's going on with him?" John's car raced through the streets as his heart thumped in his chest, threatening to burst out of love. The strong emotion he had felt for Nina and kept suppressed had washed over him like a tsunami. He had finally become the feeling he had kept locked away in his heart for so long. John had made up his mind to go all the way with Nina and leave no stone unturned. He rushed to the jewelry store on his way to Nina's house and bought her a perfect princess-cut diamond ring. He knew that he would be a fool to let her go in front of his eyes and do nothing. So this would be his next and final move towards his goal to prove his sincerity to Nina and show her that what he felt for her was more than friendship and lust. He may have emotionally shut himself off in the past, but tonight he would tell her everything he had kept in his heart. When Nina heard her doorbell, she had an inkling of it being a visit from John. As the door swung open, she was about to say something when John surprised her by dropping onto one knee and taking out a ring from nowhere. "Marry me, Nina. I don't think I can live without you. Please put an end to this turmoil. My love for you is honest and unending. Believe me, I am not a pervert." Nina was stunned, struggling to process the situation as she simply stared at him in disbelief. "I just bought this ring. It may not be according to your preference, but it symbolizes the love I have for you in my heart." John continued, confessing his true feelings to her earnestly. "I know I have been insensitive to your feelings when you were there in my life, waiting for me to acknowledge and accept our love. It was your departure that made me realize what I truly wanted. I've been by your side all this time, but I never knew how to cherish you. I miss you every single second you're not with me, and that makes me ache. I long for you so much, Nina. Without you, I feel like I'm trapped in a cold and lonely world. I beg you to return to me." Nina felt like her world was unraveling. She had never seen John like this. In the middle of the night, he was kneeling at her doorstep, holding up a ring while delivering this heartfelt speech. Tears streamed down Nina's face, blurring her vision. She cried softly, as if all the strength had left her body, and she slid down the doorframe. John tried to help her up, but she pushed him away and shouted hysterically, "Why are you doing this to me? Get out! You said you would stop disturbing my life, but you didn't. You don't understand me at all. I don't want to see you." She trembled violently, her hair disheveled, and she looked like she was on the verge of madness. The commotion drew the attention of the neighbors, and people peered out to see what was happening. Nina was in turmoil. She hated John, loathed him for disrupting her life, for shattering the boundaries she had created between them. She had meticulously planned her escape for so long, only to watch it crumble in an instant. John was the demon haunting her mind and soul that she couldn't drive away. He was beyond infuriating. She slammed the door shut, blocking John from entering. On the other side of the door, her crying still echoed clearly in John's ears. He sat down by the door, feeling like a man devoid of soul, and began to speak slowly. "I know your middle name is Muriel. You grew up in Boston, and your parents are professors in that university. I know your favorite meal is pancakes with blueberries and whipped cream on top. You can run fast in 7-inch high heels. You prefer curly hair because it makes your face appear smaller, and you enjoy sleeping in, which makes you occasionally run late. I never used to mind it because I knew a good night's sleep kept your mood happy throughout the day. Whenever you looked unhappy, I would make sure to take you out to dinner." His voice trailed off, growing softer. "In my heart, I always treated you like my girlfriend, even though I didn't realize it myself. On your first day at work, you wore a white shirt and a black skirt with a ponytail, looking pretty but also a bit shy. Let me tell you, I told you to be professional with me, not just to set boundaries for you, but also for myself. But that never really restrained me. At some point, you became the most important person in my life. If you were unhappy, I'd cancel all my appointments to be with you. When you took sick leave, I'd rush to your house as soon as I got to know." Behind the closed door, Nina had stopped making any sound at all, but John knew that she was still there. "So," he continued, "when you left, something felt off. I didn't know why, but I didn't want to go home. I wandered around aimlessly every day, not knowing what I was searching for. It was like losing something incredibly precious, but not knowing how to get it back. Until that night when I saw you at the supermarket, it suddenly dawned on me that it was you that I'd lost. I asked Dave to find your address and came here every day. Yet, I didn't dare to come in front of you, fearing you'd run away again. For the first time in my life, I was worried about losing something." He paused, taking a breath. He couldn't care about anything else. Whether she could accept it or not, he was confessing his feelings, revealing all of him in front of her. Even if he faced rejection, he will have no regrets. He was finally unburdening himself after holding it all in for so long. He sighed. "I don't know if you're listening, but I've poured my heart out. I've told you everything, whether you want to accept me or not, Nina. I just want to say." John suddenly stopped speaking. Nina leaned against the door, listening in silence, but her heart was pounding wildly, as if she was terrified. She curled up into a ball and waited for his words. John finally declared, "I love you, baby." After uttering those words, John fell into a long silence. Those 3 simple words felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds, but once he said them, he felt a sense of relief. He straightened up, somewhat exhausted, and took a deep breath. John closed his eyes, believing that perhaps silence was the most fitting conclusion. The corridor was dark and quiet, with the eerie sound of the wind outside, whistling through lifeless branches, creating a sharp and desolate melody. John leaned against the wall, feeling numb all over. Disheartened, he closed his eyes, not wanting to think about anything. After some time had passed, John was almost in a daze when the door suddenly swung open and Nina stood there with a pale face saying, "Come in, John." Nina extended her hand and John took it, finally managing to stand with her assistance. Without saying a word, Nina turned and walked silently into the room. John closed the door behind him and followed her inside. Nina tossed the cushions aside and sat down on the couch. John did the same. John stood still for a long while before he dared to lean over and gently hug her. Nina stayed motionless, as if asleep. John didn't dare to move. It was as if none of this was real. Moments ago, he had been sitting outside the door, cold and rigid, and now he was holding the woman he loved in his arms. It felt like a dream, and he took a deep breath, closing his eyes. If this was a dream, he wished for it to never end. They stayed like that for a long time, undisturbed. The next morning, Roman woke up before Daisy, who was still lying in bed. As he got ready and returned to the room, Daisy slowly opened her eyes and looked at him. Roman asked, "Did I wake you up?" Daisy shook her head and propped herself up on her elbows. "Go back to sleep a little longer." "I'll come to pick you up for lunch," Roman said, walking over and giving her a gentle kiss. However, Daisy reached out and hugged his waist, nuzzling against his arms like a kitten. Roman had no choice but to sit down and place her head on his lap. "Is there something you want to talk about?" Daisy buried her head in his arms once again. After a while, she mumbled, "Please don't be mad." Roman was puzzled and assured her, "I'm not mad." "What's wrong?" Daisy insisted. "First, promise me that you won't get angry." "All right, I promise. Now tell me what's going on in that head of yours." Daisy hesitated briefly, as if making a decision. She lowered her head and spoke softly. "Can I go see Ethan?" Instead of reacting impulsively to her request, Roman asked with patience, "Why do you want to see him?" "I just want to see if he is doing well," Daisy explained. "Dave can't force him to stay against his will, can he?" "I want to talk to Dave myself," Daisy trod carefully, sensing Roman's displeasure. She looked up at him and said, "I know you don't like Ethan. If you don't want me to do it, I can understand it. That's not what I want. If you want to go, then why not?" Roman felt annoyed, but didn't want to argue with her. Daisy bit her lip and looked up at him with her big gray eyes. "You won't be mad if I go?" Roman sighed and softened his tone. "If you want to go, then get ready. I'll take you there." Daisy got up from her bed, saying, "Why don't you just give me the address? I'll take a cab." Roman raised an eyebrow, and Daisy immediately rushed into the bathroom. Roman watched her go with a helpless shake of his head. Everyone assumed that he kept dominating her, if only they knew how often he caved to her wishes. After finishing their breakfast, Daisy prepared herself for the day ahead. Roman, too, had his breakfast quietly, and then they departed from home together. Their first destination was Dave's villa. On the route, Roman placed a call to Dave, who answered with a groggy voice, "Who's calling? Disturbing my sleep so early in the morning?" Roman replied, "It's me, Roman. We'll be dropping by your villa before heading to work. Just giving you a heads up because Daisy will be joining us to visit her friend. I hope you've been taking good care of him, or you might find yourself answering to her. Be ready for that." Upon hearing Daisy's name, Dave ended the call and promptly messaged Nick and Leo, instructing them to prepare for a visitor. When he emerged from his room, he discovered Nick and Leo waiting. Nick, with a yawn, grumbled, "Who's bothering us this time in the morning?" Dave clarified, "It's Daisy. She's here to see Ethan. Bring the boy to the house and make him a little presentable." Nick and Leo exchanged surprised glances, realizing that the esteemed guest was none other than Daisy, the central figure in many events and Roman's girlfriend. Despite hearing about her, meeting her in person left them a bit jittery. Since they were dealing with such a high-profile guest, Dave reminded Nick and Leo to be courteous and not to overwhelm Daisy while they awaited her arrival. A few hours later, just as Nick dragged a limping Ethan up the stairs, a speeding Rolls-Royce came to a halt in front of Dave's house, stopping Nick in his tracks. As the Rolls-Royce pulled in front of Dave's house, he went outside to meet Roman and Daisy. He was so good at dealing with the foulest of men that even the worst of criminals feared him, and here he was, feeling afraid of a seemingly timid girl. He composed himself when he saw Roman and Daisy. Roman nodded at him in acknowledgement before driving away and leaving Daisy with him. Daisy seemed a bit startled by Roman's departure, but followed Dave inside. Nick and Leo welcomed her warmly with bemused expressions. It was evident that they were familiar with her being Roman's girlfriend. Dave took Daisy to the couch in the living room. He stammered out a greeting. "Hello, hi, Miss Daisy. Wait here while we get the boy. Call us if you need anything." Nick and Leo were craning their heads to get a closer look. Seeing everyone hovering around, Daisy felt a bit overwhelmed. "Yeah, sure," she said in a very low voice. Dave noticed Daisy's unease and signaled to his colleagues to give them some space. As the others left, he tried to make small talk with Daisy. After a while, he ran out of things to say, and they fell into an awkward silence. Dave scratched his head, growing increasingly uneasy as he pondered the strange turn of events that had unfolded that day. He couldn't help but wonder why things had taken such an unexpected course. Finally, Ethan entered the room, and upon spotting Daisy, he was taken aback. Turning to Dave, he questioned, "Why did you involve her?" In Ethan's mind, this world of criminals and cheats harbored no benevolent souls, so he assumed Dave had brought Daisy into the situation to exert leverage over him. Daisy swiftly intervened, gently guiding Ethan to a seat. "Don't be angry with him," she implored. "I came here on my own accord. Dave had nothing to do with it." Ethan was now visibly anxious. He responded, "Why are you here? This isn't a place for someone like you. I came to see you. The last I heard, you mentioned leaving the city. Why haven't you left yet?" Daisy asked him. Ethan shot an accusatory glance at Dave but remained silent. Daisy turned to Dave and requested, "Can we have a private conversation, Dave?" Dave nodded and excused himself, leaving them alone. As he walked away, he couldn't help but wonder why Roman had consented to Daisy's visit, as the situation was awkward for everyone involved. Nick, Leo, and Dave retreated to another room, providing the two with some privacy. Daisy regarded Ethan earnestly and inquired, "Have they harmed you?" Ethan shook his head, replying, "I'm all right." Daisy pressed further, "I heard that Dave wanted you to work with him?" Ethan observed the worry in her eyes and admitted, "Yes, but I declined his offer. They're not good people, and I don't want to get entangled with them." While Daisy remained unaware of Dave's true nature, she felt grateful to him for reuniting her with Roman when she had run away. Maybe it was because she was such a good person herself, but she didn't think of Dave as a very bad person. Dave isn't entirely a bad person. He's reasonable, at least. If you wish to leave, just tell him, and he won't force you, Daisy assured Ethan innocently. Ethan found it challenging to explain his circumstances to Daisy. He was aware that she didn't fully comprehend the perils of the criminal world. Consequently, he chose to remain silent. Daisy reassured him, "Don't worry, if you want to depart, I'll speak with Dave about it." Ethan managed a wry smile, thinking that if Dave were genuinely reasonable, he wouldn't have taken a path in the criminal world to begin with, but he remained quiet. Daisy then made her way to the next room to find Dave. Nick was standing nearby and approached her, asking, "Can I help you, Daisy?" "I'm looking for Dave," Daisy replied. Nick glanced up where Dave was standing on the balcony of the second floor. He called out, "Dave, Daisy is looking for you." Dave had been feeling uneasy with Daisy's presence at his house. When he heard her looking for him, he rushed downstairs to meet her. Daisy went back to Ethan, and a few minutes later, Dave entered the room. Daisy offered a shy smile to Dave and got straight to the point. "Dave, Ethan mentioned that you're not allowing him to leave. Is that true?" Dave hastily waved his hands, his demeanor suddenly accommodating. "No, not at all. I just suggested to Ethan that he could enjoy his time here for a few more days. Away from the college and the media." Daisy turned to Ethan and reassured him, saying, "See, Dave is reasonable. He likes having you around, which is why he suggested you stay a bit longer." Dave chimed in, "Exactly. Ethan and I have developed a good rapport, so I thought extending his stay might be nice." Though Dave outwardly spoke amicably, internally, he sensed that Daisy might be playing innocent to gain the upper hand in the conversation. Daisy persisted, "Ethan feels like he's causing too much trouble by staying a few more days. If he wants to go back, Dave, you should let him." Daisy's direct request left Dave uncertain about how to respond. Had it been Roman asking, he would have outright refused. But now, facing Daisy's determination, he struggled to find words. Worried that Daisy's persistence might aggravate Dave further, Ethan interjected, "Don't worry about it, Daisy. You head back." Daisy was resolute, unwilling to leave until the matter was resolved. She gazed at both Ethan and Dave, stating, "Dave, it doesn't make sense for Ethan to stay if he's not willing to assist with your work. It's not cost-effective for you either." Her trusting eyes remained fixed on Dave as if her faith in him hung in the balance. Dave appeared to have little choice but to nod. "So, you'll allow Ethan to leave?" Daisy's innocent expression blossomed with joy, and Dave inwardly cursed himself. He'd prefer to be out on the streets fighting than endure this discussion with Daisy. Reluctantly, he agreed and addressed Ethan. "If you truly want to leave, then go. I won't force you." Ethan was taken aback by Dave's surprisingly easy agreement, especially under Daisy's influence. This girl has some undeniable charm. Ethan stood up hastily and turned to Daisy. "Let's go then." Dave chimed in once more. "Rest assured, once I've given my word, I won't backtrack on it. Miss Daisy is my guest, and I won't make things difficult for her. Take your time to pack up and leave." Dave internally cursed himself for yielding so readily to the innocent persuasion of a young woman. John had left Nina's house the next morning for his office, where he now sat, still lost in his thoughts. Mary knocked on his door and entered with a stack of documents, placing them on his desk. "Mr. John, this is the market data for the first half of the month. Please take a look." John snapped out of his reverie and handed the documents back to her, saying, "From now on, you will be solely responsible for these reports. Don't bother me with it anymore." "All right, sir," Mary replied, taking the documents and preparing to leave. John called her back and then smiled as he wrote on a sticky note, "Order a bouquet of roses to be delivered to this address." But as he finished speaking, he halted his writing and said, "Never mind, I'll handle it myself. You can go and get back to work." Mary bid him a good day and exited the office. She had certainly heard about John's reputation as a playboy. However, upon working closely with him, she hadn't noticed any signs of him being promiscuous. But now, it seemed that her boss was ready to revive his playboy reputation, and Mary couldn't help but wonder who the lucky woman was. John lit a cigarette, took a deep drag, and exhaled slowly as he watched the smoke rise into the air. He felt like he was in a daze, as if he still couldn't believe what had happened. He recalled what had occurred that morning when he woke up with Nina in his arms. Lying next to her, he gently ran his fingers through her hair, feeling the soft, silky strands. Nina loved to dye her hair in different shades, so much so that he had almost forgotten how her natural black hair looked. His gaze then settled on Nina's eyes. He loved when the corners of her eyes curled up while she smiled. Teasing her in the morning had become a daily ritual that brightened his day, even though back then he was oblivious to the fact that he was in love with her. He looked at the person in his arms and smiled. Perhaps his gaze was too piercing as Nina suddenly woke from sleep, her eyes wide with shock. She practically leaped out of his arms, nearly falling off the couch in the process. He reached out quickly to steady her. "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Nina glared at him and shifted away, putting some space between them. "You're the nightmare. Why are you here with me?" His response to her sharp accusation was a smile as he calmly replied, "Whether a dream is good or a nightmare, what matters is that you dreamt of me." Nina regained her composure, having initially panicked. She propped herself up, maintaining a cautious distance from him, and asserted, "I've made a decision. I'll give you a 3-month trial period. If you can change my heart during these 3 months, I'll consider giving our love a chance. Otherwise, you will never interfere in my life again." He eagerly accepted the challenge. Winning women's affections had always been his specialty, and 3 months were more than enough time. He wanted to shower Nina with his love every passing minute. Meanwhile, as Mary was lost in thoughts about John, the intercom phone rang, jolting her back to reality. She promptly answered it was Roman. Then she called John. "Sir, the president has requested your presence." John stretched and groaned, suddenly invigorated. He left his office and headed to meet Roman. Upon arriving on Roman's floor, Sarah noticed John's unusually cheerful mood and playfully remarked, "Mr. Smith, you seem remarkably happy this morning. Care to share what's happened?" John stroked his chin and raised an eyebrow teasingly, saying, "Is it that obvious?" Sarah responded with a smile. "If there's good news, you should share it with everyone and spread the joy." John waved her off with a mischievous grin. Leaning closer, he whispered in her ear, "I won't divulge this so easily." Sarah pretended to be irritated, playfully pushing him toward Roman's office door. "The boss has been waiting for you, and you're here chatting with me," she teased. John headed inside Roman's office, curious of the matter that might have concerned him. It was 5 years ago when Caroline Williams first laid her eyes on the famous Spencer heir. She still remembered how she had stood frozen at her spot when her eyes graced Roman's godly face. She didn't know whether it was his beauty or the powerful aura he commanded that pulled her towards him. But there was one thing that she was sure of. She needed to have him. She couldn't exactly put a finger on what it was that she had felt for him since that moment. Until date, she had not been able to decipher it. Love, obsession, passion, or maybe everything all at once. That was what Roman was to her. From that day onwards, she had been a woman on a mission, but here she was, 5 years later, empty-handed as all her efforts had been in vain. It was not often that she lost in life, so to experience this feeling, let alone accept it had been a hell for her. But as she stood in the ruins of her shattered dreams, she was still not willing to give up on the illusion she called love. There was a time when she was what society labels as the it girl of her generation. She was the cover girl of every influential magazine there is. She had a doting family, and above all, she had the crown jewel, Roman, who went on dates with her. But that's the thing about reigns. Sooner or later, no matter whose it is, they do come to an end. Queens are replaced, more often than not, by kings themselves. That was what Roman did to her. He unceremoniously exiled her from the throne she had meticulously crafted over the years with her lies and gifted it to a low-born, pathetic girl. She scoffed at the mockery that now seems to be her reality. Caroline wiped the tears that burned her eyes and soul and swore justice to herself. She would take her revenge on Daisy, and when she does, the society will stand to watch. She pressed on the accelerator, and the car sped forward, taking her to her destination. Meanwhile, John, who couldn't concentrate on anything but Nina, took an early break from the office. He drove to her house and her doorbell chimed, shattering the silence of the afternoon. When Nina opened the door, a huge bouquet of red roses greeted her, and moments later a handsome face emerged from behind. John was smiling at her. "What is this?" she asked, unable to hide her confusion. "What do you mean, what is this? These are flowers for you, if that wasn't already implied," he replied. Nina stayed quiet for a moment and then said, "Don't you have to be at work?" "Appreciate my sentiments, Nina. I came to see you. I took today off early." He smiled. "Don't hamper your work because of me. I never asked you to," Nina said. "I am not hampering my work. I finished it early. But didn't you say I had 3 months to win you?" He was a bit confused now. "You misunderstood me, John. I don't want you to bring me flowers or go out of your way to prove your love for me. I want you to become a better person. You should love me as a part of your life, without the excitements and thrills of newfound infatuation, because that fades away over time. I want you to love me as a part of your existence, as your support and your friend," she finished calmly. John stood there smiling like a fool before he took a few steps and pulled Nina into a gentle embrace. "I will," he whispered to her. Caroline's car came to a halt in front of her destination. She stood in front of Roman and Daisy's apartment building, her gaze not wavering for even a second. She adjusted the brim of her hat, trying to disguise herself as she had a flashback of every single incident in the past 5 years that eventually led to this day. Caroline had spent years observing Roman, his every habit and preference. To say that she was even familiar with the sound of his breath would not be an exaggeration. She became a wallflower to be familiar with his happening life. Every business meeting and every party that he attended had Caroline lurking in the shadows, watching over him with hawk eyes. She hired henchmen to follow his every move in case something escaped her notice. All those years, she had been nothing short of a stalker. All her efforts bore fruit when she discovered Roman Spencer's most important secret, Iris Anderson. When she came to know of her existence and the role she played in Roman's life, she knew she had found the map that would lead her to her salvation. People do crazy things in love, right? So there was nothing wrong if she willingly transformed, both physically and otherwise, to resemble the women her man had loved in the past. She went through a number of painful plastic surgeries in South Korea. She changed her identity, and for what? All the plotting that had gone behind making sure that Roman's parents saw her as their son's potential bride, and all these days that she had spent befriending every friend of Roman's went down the drain. And why? Because some leech named Daisy stuck her tentacles on Roman and led their love to bleed dry. In front of the Spencer family, she never appeared insincere, always exuding grace and poise. The Spencer family had taken a liking to her. Everything appeared flawless, and as long as Iris refrained from returning to fulfill their 5-year pact, Roman would have been hers. Amidst her devoted performance, she made a grave blunder in underestimating Daisy as a mere servant, unworthy of a second glance. Little did she realize that this unassuming girl would one day shatter her carefully constructed facade. A growing unease had begun to seep into her consciousness as she observed Roman's interactions with Daisy. She closely scrutinized Daisy, a blonde beauty with delicate features. How could she possibly pose a threat, she had arrogantly reasoned. Yet, a persistent, nagging feeling at the recesses of her mind compelled her to test her instincts. Caroline strategically drew nearer to Daisy. She used to drop cryptic hints about herself and Roman in her presence. On one occasion, as Daisy served her tea, Caroline discreetly extended her foot, causing Daisy to stumble, and scalding tea spilled the back of Daisy's hand. The pain was excruciating, but Daisy remained silent. Instead, she kept apologizing to Caroline. Caroline was observing Roman's reaction throughout, but he remained unmoved. Roman neither scolded Daisy nor displayed any concern. His composure was unnerving. At that moment, Caroline could not understand Roman's reaction. It felt to her as though Daisy wasn't as important as she had given her credit to be. But later, when Roman hastily dropped her into the car, she sensed his underlying anxiety. He cared for Daisy, and for the first time she was concerned. What shocked Caroline was the lengths she had gone to earn the friendship of seemingly impenetrable Roman, and that Daisy had earned without any effort. Just like that, being a lowly maid. Oh, how happy she had been when Daisy had run away from the house. The one thorn in her path was out. But of course, her victory was short-lived, and soon she found that Roman had found Daisy, and they were sharing an apartment. She had sleepless nights thinking about Roman's intimacy with Daisy. Every time she met Daisy in the premises of Roman's office, she wanted to choke her to death then and there, but she had waited for the right opportunity, a predator ready to strike. Fate played a hand when Caroline discovered that Daisy and Emily were classmates who had now become friends. This presented a golden opportunity for manipulation. Caroline exploited Emily's jealousy and anger, as well as Ethan's ambition for a brighter future, to engineer a drama. She used the budding relationship between Daisy and Ethan to spread rumors of their romantic involvement. Finally, the day arrived. The climax of her scheme was set for Daisy's birthday gala. In front of a crowd of witnesses, she would publicly humiliate Daisy. Chaos and disgrace were inevitable. The scandal would be so big and bad that Daisy would undoubtedly flee the city. Roman, a man of pride, hadn't searched for Iris when she departed, so why would he bother searching for a maid tarnished by scandal? Caroline had always prided herself on her strategic skills, but reality proved much harsher than she expected. She had planned for the beginning, but didn't see this brutal end coming. She had been caught brutally. Daisy had slipped away, and Roman's relentless pursuit had pushed Caroline's family business to the brink, snatching away everything. Caroline's uncle quickly distanced himself from the family due to the crisis, prioritizing his influential connections over blood ties. Her father, once a respected doctor, lost his license in a medical mishap. And now he was under a huge debt, struggling to make ends meet. Caroline herself lost her job, leaving their family without income. It seemed Roman's aim was to make them suffer. Caroline glared at Daisy from below, thinking about the turmoil she'd caused. She wondered if Roman's love for Daisy would endure if her pretty facade crumbled. How would Roman look at Daisy if that beautiful face was tarnished and burned? A dark look flickered through her eyes. In the midst of a busy day, Caroline approached a familiar door with determination, holding a chilled glass bottle in her hand. Caroline's heart, once passionate, now felt cold and empty. Memories of Daisy orchestrating her humiliation replayed in her mind. The doorbell rang, and Daisy opened it, surprise visible in her expression as she saw Caroline standing there. "Hi, Caroline," she greeted her. Daisy and Caroline stood silently facing each other for a few moments, none saying anything. They stood like the victor and the vanquished, except it was difficult to tell who was who. Caroline's demeanor remained composed as she spoke. "I've come to have a few words with you. May I come in?" "Of course. Please come in." Daisy hurriedly stepped aside, welcoming Caroline into the room. "Please, take a seat. I'll pour you a glass of water." Caroline positioned herself in the center of the room, her gaze sweeping around. She noticed 2 biscuits on a plate, crafted in the likeness of human figures, one male and one female, as if they were handcrafted. She took one and found the letter D inscribed on the back in chocolate. She assumed the other biscuit likely bore an R, an intriguing pair indeed. Daisy returned with tea and offered, "Caroline, let's have some tea." Caroline looked up to face Daisy and pointed to the biscuits on the plate. "You made those? They look quite exquisite." Daisy nodded with a hint of unease and inquired, "So, what did you want to talk to me about?" Daisy didn't let it show, but she harbored a profound dislike toward Caroline for all her past actions. She had never experienced such intense antipathy towards anyone. She had imagined that if she ever confronted Caroline, she would jolt her and ask her how one woman could do such a thing to another woman. Yet with Caroline right before her, she found herself incapable of uttering a single reproachful word. What had to happen had happened, and there was no undoing it. Blaming Caroline now seemed futile. Perhaps Caroline had felt remorse. Was that why she had come? Caroline took a seat, took a sip of tea, and spoke calmly. "For whatever mistake I committed in the past, I have paid more than enough. My company has lost a number of shares, my uncle has broken all ties with us, and my father has lost his license. I have lost my job and any chance at a good career. I hope you are satisfied now." Daisy had been completely unaware of these events, finding it hard to believe that Roman had taken such drastic actions in such a short time. "Roman wouldn't do such things, Caroline. There must be some misunderstanding." "No, there has been no misunderstanding. This is the reality," Caroline replied with an unsettling chuckle. "He'd do anything for you, pathetic girl. You hold a special place in his heart. Even if Iris were to return, I doubt she'd have a chance against you." Daisy had always been submissive, enduring mistreatment without resistance. Caroline's words took her by surprise, shifting the dynamics so suddenly that she felt disoriented. She began to apologize to Caroline. "I'm so sorry, Caroline. I had no knowledge of any of this. If I had known, I would have certainly tried to stop Roman. Please, let me talk to him and make him reconsider." "No need," Caroline responded icily. "Even if you talk to him, he might not change his mind. Moreover, the damage he's caused is already done." Panic gripped Daisy, and she felt an urgent need to call someone on her phone. "No, I must speak with him about this." "Don't you dare move," Caroline suddenly shouted, causing Daisy to freeze in her tracks. Caroline retrieved a bottle of sulfuric acid from her bag, opened it, and with a chilling smile, she declared, "You don't need to persuade him. All I have to do is pour the contents of this bottle on your face and it'll be over." Initially terrified, Daisy's demeanor shifted strangely to calmness. She inquired, "What's in that bottle?" Caroline, unflinchingly honest, announced to Daisy's face, "It's vitriol. Are you trying to disfigure me since that makes you think you'll have your revenge?" Daisy asked her, trying to hide the shudder that went down her spine on knowing her intentions. "I've wanted to do this ever since you got involved with Roman. I was foolish back then, and I've regretted it ever since. If I had poured acid on your face back then, Roman might have left you long ago. You can't do that. It's a crime. You could go to jail and ruin your life forever." The thought of eternal ruination made Caroline break into a sinister laugh. "I'm not afraid of death itself. What makes you think I will be scared of breaking the law?" With that, she raised her hand, and the acid in the bottle was flung toward Daisy. In the blink of an eye, someone shoved Caroline forcefully from behind, shouting, "Get out of here!" Daisy instinctively sought refuge behind the sofa as Caroline was pushed aside. The vitriol barely grazed Daisy, landing only on a small portion of her hair. Caroline stumbled and fell to the floor, a good part of the acid splashing onto her own face. She screamed in agony, writhing on the ground as the sound of sizzling acid settled on her skin. Roman rushed to Caroline's side, lifting her from the floor and carrying her to the bathroom. He turned on the shower, and the water quickly began to wash away the acid, alleviating her pain. Roman called 911 for assistance and subsequently notified the police. They stayed for endless hours in the hospital, getting treatment and signing documents. After Caroline was admitted and the police took over the matter, they decided to leave. "Here, take my hand." Roman held Daisy's hand and guided her out. Daisy remained, and Roman understood that she had been deeply shaken by the incident, so he embraced her, whispering, "It's okay, my love. It's all over now. Don't be afraid. I'm right here." Daisy continued to tremble, her lips quivering, unable to find her voice. Roman held her close. He carried Daisy to the car and once inside, held her tightly. He called Sarah, who had already received the news of the incident from John. "Yes, sir," she answered. "I am bringing Daisy to the office. She'll feel better with you in the office, and I want to get better security around the apartment before I take her there." "Sure, sir, I would be glad to be of help." Upon arriving at the office, Roman instructed Daisy to recline on the spacious lounge bed. He asked Sarah to bring a cup of hot cocoa for the young girl. Daisy sat beneath the quilt, cradling the warm cocoa, and took a few trembling sips. The hot, sweet liquid slid down her throat, caressing her stomach like velvet. It brought a comforting warmth, gradually easing her anxiety. She let out a long sigh and inquired, "Caroline, she won't die, will she?" Roman gently stroked her shoulder, saying, "You look exhausted. Rest for a while, don't think about it. You'll feel better after some rest. She'll be fine." Daisy shook her head, stating sadly, "I can't sleep. Caroline is so pitiful," she added after a pause. Roman furrowed his brow slightly, his disgust visible. She brought this upon herself. A person with guilt must deal with consequences. She made a grave mistake and refused to rectify it. Instead, she sought revenge, daring to harm you. If I hadn't gone back for something, you might be the one in the hospital right now instead of her. Daisy fell into silence, sipping her hot cocoa slowly. Roman's words had struck a chord. Caroline had committed wrongdoings without a hint of remorse. Roman gently took the cup from her hand, helped her lie down, and sat at the head of the bed, his hands resting on her shoulders. "Sleep well. I'll be here with you." Daisy closed her eyes, and after a while she murmured, "Caroline is already so pitiful. Please spare her family." Roman's heart ached, but he couldn't let go. Even after enduring so much, Daisy's thoughts were still filled with concern for Caroline. He had never encountered someone so selfless. "You don't need to worry. I have thought of something." Perhaps sensing the underlying frustration in Roman's voice, Daisy finally drifted into a peaceful sleep. Listening to her soft, even breathing, Roman carefully removed the quilt, tucked her in, and tiptoed out of the room. As he sat down at the table, John rushed in like a whirlwind, exclaiming, "What happened?" Roman motioned for him to keep his voice down and replied in a hushed tone, "Daisy's sleeping inside." John lowered his voice, asking, "Is she okay? I heard from Matt that Caroline went to your apartment with acid. I called Sarah and rushed to the office." "She's fine, but Caroline has gotten herself into trouble," Roman said with a hint of frustration. "She plotted something far too elaborate, and it led to this." John was momentarily taken aback, and then he nodded. Roman fell silent for a moment before saying, "When this all began, Daisy told me that Caroline would live a painful life because her heart was broken. I didn't take it seriously then. But when a person becomes desperate, they're capable of anything." John pulled out his cigarette case and tossed one to Roman. With a flick of his thumb, the silver lighter produced a small flame. He lit Roman's cigarette first and then his own, saying, "As long as she is alive, we will have to keep an eye on her. You need to be extra cautious." Roman took a drag of his cigarette and replied, "We'll see when she gets out of prison." John and Roman continued to sit in silence, contemplating Caroline's actions and the intricacies of her situation. Despite their disdain for her, there was a tinge of pity for how her life had taken such a dark turn. Suddenly, the phone rang, breaking the silence. It was Sarah on the line, asking if Roman would accept a call from Mr. Cade Williams. Roman was momentarily surprised, which soon transitioned to rage, and he refused to take the call. John prompted him to take the call. "It might be on a legal issue, plus we will get to know the course of action they are opting for." Roman Spencer agreed to talk to Caroline's father. As he picked up the phone, Cade Williams's voice greeted him.
"Hello, Mr. Roman. It's so good to finally get you on a call. I have been trying to contact you for quite some time. So how are you these days?"
Roman, however, remained composed and inquired about the purpose of the call without indulging in silly small talk. "Now that you have gotten me, how about we get to the point instead of dilly-dallying? I have important matters to get back to." Cade Williams had initially intended to engage in casual conversation, but he sensed Roman's impatience and got straight to the point. He wanted to request Roman to be lenient towards Caroline for the sake of their family ties.
"Very well, then. You may have an idea about why I have called you then. Let me just get straight to it. I don't want you to file a case against Caroline. I know what she has done is unforgivable, but don't you think you are equally as responsible for making her take this dire step? You not only broke her heart, but also ruined our family's business and reputation. What else do you want from us? I beg you to let this go, Roman. If the media gets to know about this incident, we won't ever be able to show our face in the society."
Roman responded with a wry smile. "Should I consider it a subtle attempt to blame everything on me, Mr. Williams?" Cade Williams quickly clarified that he had no such intention, acknowledging his reliance on the Spencer family's goodwill during their challenging times.
"I am not doing any such thing. Please try to understand. I just want you to leave my family alone, that's all. I think we have suffered enough by your hands. Your family has been an ally and friend of ours. I am asking you to do it for old times' sake."
As the conversation between the two men continued, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense, laden with unspoken history. Roman had no desire to prolong the discussion with Williams, so he hung up the call without either confirming or denying his request. He wanted to make him suffer for a tad bit longer. Roman asked Sarah to prepare some clothes for Daisy, hinting that they wouldn't be returning to their usual residence that night. "Want to stay at a hotel then?" John inquired. "No, I want to go home today. The Spencer estate," Roman finished, his voice hinting at the exhaustion the events have caused him. John stayed quiet for a few moments, weighing the consequences of Roman returning back to his house with Daisy. He realized he preferred being in the dark about the matter. Understanding the need for privacy, John decided to take his leave. With John gone, Roman was left alone with his thoughts, the lingering scent of cigarette smoke filling the room as he contemplated the events that had transpired.